Okay. Okay, Yosi, Amram, right? Thank you so much for joining us here on Wake the F Up podcast, where we try to share with people from around the world about spirituality, consciousness, just topics that may enhance their lives in different ways within this, what I call the personal growth or spirituality or spiritual path in life, which everyone should at least try to walk. Because of the, I'll let you maybe elaborate on that as we go on in this podcast about this topic of spiritual path. But I'd like you to, I let me say some titles at least that I've caught from your website. Basically, you are an engineer from MIT, if I'm not wrong. Did an MBA in Harvard, PhD as a clinical psychologist, licensed clinical psychologist, and CEO, leadership coach as well. And finally, and above all, which you can see on the screen as well, the author of the book, Spiritually Intelligent Leadership, which is an award-winning. So those are a lot of titles, which are nice. But I'd like to know also the personal version of who is Yosi. If you have to summarize your life, I like to ask this question a lot. If you have to summarize your life from your birth to right now with the major milestones, how would you write it?
Wow. Okay. So I'll have to summarize what about 6 years in less than 5 minutes. No, it's a little more than 6 years.
It's a lot of work, yeah, I know.
But anyway, I would start with I grew up and was raised in Israel, and it was a semi-observant Jewish family. My grandfather was observant, my religious Jew, but my parents were not. We would celebrate the holidays. And I was very math and science oriented kind of teenager, and the idea of spirituality and God and all that didn't make sense to me. So I was kind of more of a hardcore scientific materialist.
Data driven guy, right?
Yeah. So, but then I discovered some things that do not correspond with pure materialistic, that were hard to explain, like psychotelepathy and things like that. I was like, there's something else going on in our universe that is not entirely explained by physics. But it was kind of something I thought, oh, someday maybe I'll investigate this. And then I was drafted into the military in Israel. There was mandatory 3-year service for all young men. And even though I was kind of pacifist in my orientation, I had no choice. Now, fortunately, it was a peaceful time in Israel. There wasn't a war like that's been horrific there in this last year. And I was as a very shy kid, but to my surprise, I had the fastest promotion record in the history of my regiment. I got all these leadership awards, so I excelled there. But I didn't really like the command and control model of the military, which is necessary in battle. You don't have time to go to a conference room and do whiteboarding.
Brainstorming, yeah.
So, but because it kind of chafed in my soul, I resolved to someday to start a company and build an organization and try different principles of leadership that would support the growth of each individual in a community, in a team environment. So that was kind of why I came to the US and studied engineering and business. And ultimately, I became an entrepreneur and started a company. And my first company was before the internet in the late 80s, 89 or so, where before the internet, you had fax machines. So you would get Nizar's morning news every day on your fax machine that was personalized to you. And you had software agents that would scan the wires and so on. And you'd give it feedback. It had self-learning and so on. And I was working 70, 80 hours a week, and I was burning out. And then the internet came along, and it was clear that all this information that we were selling on subscription was going to become free and
Yeah.
ad supported. So that was a big threat, and it really scared me and terrified me. And I got into a depression. So it was very, very hard. But I persevered, and we changed the business to an internet business. And ultimately, the company went public. It was a high flying internet stock. Our stock price
business bubble of the 90s, right?
Yeah. Well, a little before. This is in 96. I'm talking about before the big bubble in 99. But yeah, there was kind of a lot of momentum, a lot about the internet. And but it was a very hectic time. And I was trying to relax one day, and I was getting a massage and lying on the massage table, and I was just relaxing and opening my mind. And I was reading about the self-aware universe and theories of physics that were explaining matter as information and consciousness. What's primary? Is consciousness primary? Is matter primary? Are they two aspects of the same thing? I was interested in this whole mind-body problem that is in philosophy. And at one point, as I was relaxing, I felt like my body was made of consciousness, and everything is one field of consciousness. And I looked through the face crater, and it looked like the floor was inside me. There was no separation. And so I had this awakening experience that we're all part of this one field of consciousness. And it kind of blew the circuits of my mind, and it threw me into a manic episode. And I had all these visions about where the internet was going, as the internet, the network of networks that connects everything and everyone across time and space. And I wanted my company, which was called Individual, to be the leader. So I initiated all these projects. And this is before Google and before Facebook, that were essentially what they were doing years later. But my team couldn't keep up. I had all these many ideas, and I was very ungrounded. And they said, hey, we can't do it. And I just said, no, we have to do it yesterday. So eventually my board put me on a voluntary leave of absence, quote unquote. And I fought them, I resigned, etc. But eventually I basically was pushed out of the company, which was very devastating and it was very shameful, because a lot of people that were seeking my company when we were a hot company stopped returning my emails and my phone calls, etc. There was all these.
Was it a hard time for you?
Huh?
Was it a hard time for you?
Yeah, super hard time, and very isolated, because I felt like I lost my baby. The company was my dream. But I slowly picked myself up. I went into therapy and tried to understand, why was I so identified with the business? Why did I get depressed? Was this awakening experience real or delusional? So that ultimately changed the direction of my life. And then I went into study transpersonal psychology to become a psychologist. And that's when I heard the term spiritual intelligence, which wasn't something I coined. It was something that Dana Zohar coined. But there was no operational definition. And I knew about emotional intelligence and how it contributes to leadership and well-being. So I was like, can we find out what is this spiritual intelligence? That kind of started me on this path to research it and define it and measure it, and then show that leaders with higher spiritual intelligence lead teams with greater morale, higher commitment, lower turnover. And since then, there's been a lot of research by many researchers using either the same measure or other measures showing that spiritual intelligence has many.
Okay, so Yosi, I'm gonna ask you here, because
please.
This is also the first time I hear the term spiritual intelligence. And before I go back to your story, because I'm also interested in your story, which is very full of ups and downs. I like this kind of, it's like a movie, right?
Roller coaster. Yeah, my life's been a roller coaster.
So what is a spiritually intelligent person? How do you define it? Beyond the leadership aspects of it?
Yeah. What is spiritual intelligence? Good. So spiritual intelligence is analogous to emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the ability to draw on emotional resources and information to help manage your and other people's emotions. So,
Okay.
but just like emotional intelligence is not the same as being emotional. If I say to you, do you know someone in your life who's emotional? You might think about it, and maybe some people, it's not necessarily positive. And I say, do you know
Yeah.
someone who's emotionally intelligent? Oh, it's different. So the same with spiritual intelligence. So spiritual intelligence is not the same as being spiritual. It is not a spiritual belief. Like you can have a belief in God or reincarnation or what have you. You can have a spiritual experience. You can meditate, walk in the forest. You have your ego dissolve. You feel oneness, etc. Those are spiritual experience. You have spiritual beliefs. But spiritual intelligence is the ability to draw on and embody spiritual qualities and resources that have been hailed by all the world's spiritual traditions. So these are things like purpose, service, trust, gratitude, humility, integrity, presence, mindfulness, and so on. So what is exciting that through my research, I interviewed 71 teachers across all the world's traditions. And regardless if they were a Buddhist or a Hindu or a Jewish or Muslim or shamanic, if they believed in God or Buddha nature or the Tao, the same qualities were viewed as virtues, compassion, forgiveness, and so on. So that's very interesting. So spiritual intelligence is these qualities that are universal across all the world's traditions. Now you might ask, well, and now modern science, positive psychology, and so on, has found that these very same qualities contribute to our well-being. So Marty,
like positive affirmation and so on, like the reflection on your body, and I watched I think I read the book and watched a few TED Talks about it, and basically you may correct me, but that when you get into this positive vibes, it influences your deep biology in a sense. You have certain hormones, like that releases. We have certain hormones released and makes your body feel more relaxed, more present, and more joyful in a sense, right? But
well, because there is a mind-body connection. So our psychology and our belief system affects our physiology. So that's important and that's correct. But when I'm talking about positive psychology, there was this fellow called Marty Seligman that started to study, traditionally psychology with Freud and so on was looking at pathology, like people that had mental disorder and so on, problems. But Marty Seligman said, no, let's focus not on the absence of the disease, like in health. You can go to the doctor when you have a heart attack or cancer, and that's kind of like classical psychology. Positive psychology says, well, what do you need to do to cultivate these virtues, or they call it character strengths? And they develop a measure that have 24 qualities, the character strengths, and these, about half of them overlap with the same qualities of spiritual intelligence. So purpose, service, gratitude, open curiosity, and so on. So there's research that if you cultivate these character strengths, it makes you mentally more healthy and more resilient, like you're in a healthy shape before you get a heart attack, before you have diabetes. So positive psychology.
You did some statistical research, about the topic, like
positive psychology
with the coach, with the spiritual coaches. Did you do like sort of? Was it statistically proven by your research that's actually having these principles in a sense, or these attitudes makes you, I don't know how do you call it, a better person, or makes you happier, or makes you, I don't know what's the result there?
Yeah, that was my doctoral research. I did a study with 42 CEOs and 210 members of the staff, showing that leaders that had higher spiritual intelligence had teams that were more committed and had higher morale and so on. And this is after controlling for emotional intelligence. So I studied both emotional intelligence, how it affects leadership, and spiritual intelligence and how it affects leadership. And each of them contributed on their own, but combined, they had a multiplicative effect. and the effect of spiritual intelligence was larger. And another study by somebody else found that leaders who had higher spiritual intelligence produce better financial results for their business unit. And different research showed that people have higher spiritual intelligence have a better quality of life, better satisfaction of life, better mental health, or resilience, and many benefits. So now there's a lot of research from many researchers that shows that this is good for our mental, psychological, and emotional health and well-being.
Interesting. You mentioned you mentioned the aspect of combining emotional and spiritual intelligence. I'll even add like the IQ, typical, the classical IQ, intellectual intelligence. We talk a lot in spirituality about balance, right? In many cultures as well, many religions. So, can you give me like a use case, an example where a leader, for example, or someone is emotionally intelligent but not spiritually intelligent, or vice versa, and like according to your experience, how can you combine like the three aspects of these, IQ, EQ, and how do you call it?
SI, or SQ. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, they're complementary. I mean, even IQ, we think of IQ as one thing, right? But IQ has, verbal comprehension, comprehension and composition and vocabulary, and then you have mathematical reasoning and logical reasoning and spatial reasoning and fluid intelligence and working memory and so on. So if you actually study how IQ is, it has many components, and they give you an average number. So the same with spiritual intelligence, and the same with emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence has primarily 4 factors: awareness of emotions in myself, self-regulation of emotion in myself, awareness of emotion in others, like I can read your face, I can read your emotion, and I can influence your emotion. So it has, and then there are other models that are even more expanded that add more. And similarly with spiritual intelligence, there's multiple domains, and there's these 22 qualities. Now there is some correlation between emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence in my research, and it makes sense because emotional intelligence involves awareness of your emotions. So, and in spiritual intelligence, there's self-knowledge. I mean, a lot of the core of spirituality is to go into your essence and discover who and what you are in your essence. So part of that is knowing your emotions, but it goes deeper than just knowing your emotions. You get to know your unconscious, you get to know your dreams, you get to know your intuition. Now, similarly with emotional intelligence, you have self-regulation. So if you're angry and you have emotional intelligence, you're not going to scream and curse and throw shoes at someone. So you can manage your emotions. But in spiritual intelligence, you have equanimity, which is not only do you not act out your anger, but even in the midst of an anger arising on the surface, it's like the surface of the ocean, there are big waves of anger, but you are rooted and grounded in the depth of your being. So you have a sense of equanimity, and you let the anger pass. And you don't act on it like with emotional intelligence, but it goes deeper than emotional intelligence. But then there are things that are unique to emotional intelligence that are not in spiritual intelligence. And there are things that are unique to spiritual intelligence, like transcendence or oneness, that are not part of emotional intelligence. So there's a little bit overlap, but they're complementary. And just like IQ and EQ don't contradict each other, ideally someone has all of them.
Yeah. I mean, I understand. It's just as you talked about the example, when you are, for example, when someone comes to you angry, how would the reaction of an just like exclusively emotionally intelligent person would be different from a exclusively spiritually intelligent person?
Okay.
I'm trying to make it a bit too going further into the the logic of it. But
yeah, well, if you're just emotional intelligence, so first of all, you're aware that they're angry. Okay.
Mm.
Secondly, with emotional intelligence, you might have empathy, and so you can empathize with them and help diffuse their anger, or you might have some uh, actually, IQ that thinks like, okay, well, what can I do to diffuse their anger? So that takes some logical, cognitive thing.
Yeah.
Now, if you have spiritual intelligence that goes deeper, then even that they're angry and you can empathize, you can also have compassion. You can also experience your oneness with them. So they're not your adversary. Then you're
Yeah.
just like, in like martial.
Mm.
Yeah, in martial arts, I don't know if you know this thing called Aikido. And in Aikido, unlike other martial arts like karate, where it's one against the other, with Aikido, it's the goal is to bring both of you to safety. So, with spiritual intelligence, you understand your interconnectedness. And just because they're angry at you, you don't harbor anger or hatred back at them. You
Yeah.
help diffuse it. You understand your connectedness, and so that it goes another level than emotional intelligence.
Okay, that's very
Am I making
understandable.
sense?
No, sorry.
Am I making sense?
No, it makes sense. It makes sense to me. Yeah, it makes sense. I'm just thinking at the same time as or like doing the connection between the coaching work we're doing in Wake the Hub Center. We're creating a meditation center last few months near Barcelona, and like it's just when people come to you, like you try to be on the same sort of vibration with them, get them into the same vibration before starting to understand, analyze, and trying to give feedback and so on. That's kind of got me connected with the example of the martial arts. Great. So back to or jump into the leaders. So how can leaders, how can they use this spiritual intelligence to lead better? So it's more business than.
Well, it's business. It could be nonprofit. It could be anywhere. It could be in your meditation center. It could be, we're all leaders. We all influence people in our family, in our community. So you don't have to be the boss at work to be a leader.
Yeah. I was focusing on the business side, so like CEOs and C-level sort of management sort of people.
Well, but you have C-levels, yeah, but you also have team leaders. You have small team leaders. You can have a team of mechanics in an airline. You can have the shift leader in a restaurant. You don't have to be.
Everybody is a leader of something, right? At least for themselves, isn't it?
Well, yeah, okay. This is the key. So leadership, first and foremost, is an inside job. You can't lead anybody else until when you lead yourself, right? So you have to lead yourself. And what is leadership? What's the difference between a leader and a manager? One of my first Harvard Business School cases was titled Managers and Leaders. Are they the same or are they different? So managers manage resources. They make decisions, they allocate, and that's important. But leaders inspire. And what is the root word of inspire is spirit. And what is spirit? It's the animating breath of life, the life force. So leaders breathe life into their organizations, and they inspire everybody around them. And how did they do that? They first have to be inspired themselves. I can't inspire you if I'm not inspired, right? I can't lead you if I'm not leading myself. So how do we inspire? We first have to find the sacred spark within us and ignite it and have our sense of purpose and our sense of calling, our personal mission. And then we align it with the purpose of the team or the organization. And then with that, we have a vision of a future we're trying to create. And then as we share that vision, then people who resonate with that vision are drawn to be with us. And then you have a group of people with a shared vision, with a shared mission, with a shared sense of values. And that reinforces, now you have a multiplicative effect. When you have a group of people, a team of people with a shared intention and a mission and a vision and a set of values, they create a community of mutuality and support. And so you have a lot more energy and people working towards the same goal, the same purpose. So then there's a sense of belonging, there's a sense of unity. So the leader is breathing life, passion, and coherence and harmony into the organization or into the team or into the community. So
this is independent of this notion of good and bad, which is mostly dualistic in a sense. So a vision is just a vision, no matter how you paint it, right?
Yeah, hopefully it's a good vision.
Yeah, through history, you have leaders that are, we call them bad, and people call them good and bad, but it's still like leaders because they draw this. They still have this deep energy that draw people in, right?
Yeah, well, you can be a leader in a terrorist organization, and your vision is to, whatever. And some people resonate and they follow you and they're willing to give up their lives, So as you say, so you can be a leader that's beyond good and evil, as Nietzsche said.
And so I'd like to maybe go deeper, Yosi, in the personal path of your, let's say, awakening in a sense. You told me about the massage session that you got this sort of out of the body experience in a sense.
But not out of the body; it was in the body and everywhere. The body was made of consciousness, and consciousness, everything was consciousness, and it was one unified field.
So how did you? Okay, so this was your first experience since teenage, since ever.
Of like a oneness, and yeah.
How did you work on that further, apart from your research about the topic of spiritual intelligence? What was your spiritual path like? That's my question. After that,
well, it's a long path. I mean, I started to read books to understand what was that. Was it real? Was it not? I mean, I started to be interested in non-duality, Vedanta, Buddhism, self, no self. I started meditating. Then I got on a path called the Diamond Approach, which is inquiry-based path that combines sort of Tibetan Buddhism, Sufism, and psychoanalytic psychology. Then I started to feel called back into my Jewish roots and Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism. But these days I draw on many traditions. I use breathing practices from Kundalini Yoga. I do compassion practices like Tonglen from Buddhism. I've done vision quests, more shamanic type of things. And so we live in an age where you can draw on multiple traditions. I think that's beautiful. But I also find that it's important to have one path that you go in deeper. And in the Diamond Approach, I've been for 17 years and was training for a number of years to be a teacher. I chose not to do that. And but every day
elaborate on that a bit, because I didn't have I don't have the word in my vocabulary set, so I'd say. what is the diamond? You mentioned a bit, but
well, it's a particular modern spiritual path. You can check it out online. It's based on love of truth and inquiry into the truth of our nature. So the basic thing you're trying to come into is who and what you are really in your essence. And we do inquiry and meditation, and but it also brings in psychology and psychoanalytic psychology, because a lot of times our psychology influence
on the work of Carl Jung and the likes, or
no, it's more Kohut and Fairbairn and a number of people in the psychoanalytic tradition,
okay, interesting. The ultimate purpose is like any path is to know oneself. And did you finally know yourself? Was this a process that never ends?
Well, the self is a mystery, as what I discover. I mean, I can never find the self. The self is a process. It's a living and breathing, ever becoming. The word in English, being, you're a human being, okay?
Yeah.
So you're a being, but being, we think of it as a noun, like an object, but being is also a verb, and being is always becoming. So, if you rest in being, you will find, like right now, if you rest in the immutable truth of I amness, I mean, you could doubt everything, like Descartes says, I think, therefore I am. He thought that you can doubt everything except that you're thinking, but you're being even when you're not thinking. So, you could doubt everything except the immutable truth of I am. And when you rest in I amness, like right now, we could rest in the experience of just I am. And the experience is ever changing, right? Each moment is a new experience is arising. So there's an ever changing, ever evolving flow of experience that's arising fresh and anew moment to moment. So being is ever becoming, and you can rest in being, and you're always becoming. So I am that I am, I will be as I will be. So even in the Bible, when Moses asks God, who are you? He says, well, that's the English translation, which is actually a mistranslation. The true Hebrew is I will be as I will be. So it speaks to the being and the becoming. So reality is always unfolding. Buddhism speaks about impermanence, right? Yeah. So but the thing about impermanence, it just seems like things are changing, right? But when you think about being and becoming, and then there's a directionality to reality. It's not just randomly changing. There's evolution. There's intelligence that is, permeating reality. That's why life evolved out of the Big Bang, out of the chaotic, hot thing that was so hot that you couldn't even form elementary particles. Things had to cool down, so particles, and then atoms, and then molecules could form, and then stars, and then life evolved. So there's a direction to it. There's some kind of intelligence. It's not just impermanence. There was just impermanence without direction, without some kind of underlying theology. Like the Greeks said, reality has a telos. It has a directionality. Where it's going, you and I don't know. But the point is, or I don't know, maybe you know. If you do, please let me know. But the point is that we're not an object. So when you look for yourself as an object, you can't find it. We're not an object. We're an unfolding mystery. The self it's an ever evolving process. So in reality, even if you look at anything, I can take this pen, okay, it looks like an object, right? But the atoms and the electrons and the protons are swarming. It's disintegrating as we speak. Even a rock is always
everything is ever changing. I heard like the cells of our body change like every few weeks or months, so we're not the same body. And that's what like.
Well, but I'm just saying, not even a living thing that we consider a living thing. The pen, or rock is changing. So we think it's a static object. That's how it looks, because it's changing at a level of microscopic changes that our human eye can't see. But if you dive deep into it with, then you'll see that it's exchanging energy with its environment. The light is hitting it, and electrons are bouncing, and it's so the
how does Yosi, how does knowing all that, because when I start pitching these kind of things to some like certain people, not all of them, some are interested but few are interested. But many will tell you like, okay, well, yeah, but
I don't
I don't
care.
think
I need to make money. I need to go. I need to
I
get
need
to.
to eat, I need to drink, I need to go work, I
Yeah,
need to.
it's true. It's true.
So what's the
So,
link here? How can you bring this up and to a level where people where it brings joy to people in a sense, right?
well,
What
that's
is
the
the
part
joy
of
there?
spiritual intelligence. So, spiritual intelligence is not about the theology or the metaphysics that we're talking about. It's about, if you have a sense of purpose, you have joy, you have beauty, you have gratitude, you have. So, that's why I focus on spiritual intelligence as opposed to just metaphysical discussion. But if you understand reality at a deeper level, then you can see the beauty of it. You can have trust.
Yeah, that was my question. Can you really be happy without knowing things for sure? Not for sure, but at least 99%. Because you may act as happy, right? So many people do, but they have no understanding how things work or no interest in how things work. Do you make any difference between like the happiness that we see, for example, in the cities? For example, I'm living in Barcelona. It's a very vibrant city. A lot of, I suppose, like San Francisco, a lot of parties, a lot of things happening.
You eat tapas, you drink sangria. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So is this also happiness, or is there like a deeper joy beyond that comes from this understanding and spiritual?
Well,
I
I
don't know.
think there's deeper joy. I mean, you could be looking happy on the externally in the moment, but I think what's more important is deeper meaning, and that happiness is more short lived. And I'm not against having parties and eating good food.
Yeah.
That's great. But there are fundamental things like if you believe you're the body and you don't understand, then at some deep level you have fear of death. And if you believe you're this body, and basically you're a skin encapsulated ego, and that creates separation, right? Now, what is the worst punishment that people have in prison? It's called solitary confinement. When people are placed in solitary confinement in a cell by themselves, most people go crazy, right? And
Yeah.
if you look at what is happening in our culture, at least in America and the US, there's ever increasing anxiety, depression, substance abuse, addiction, suicide rate, loneliness. But when you think at the root of it, if I believe I am a skin encapsulated ego, I've basically placed myself in solitary confinement. And so that resulting isolation has invariably mental health consequences, and then physical health consequences, and loneliness and anxiety, etc. So I think a lot of our suffering comes from misunderstanding of our interconnectedness and interdependence. And right now I think, oh, I'm a separate body. I got a plant here on my desk. But it's separate from me. But really, every breath I take, I'm inhaling oxygen, which is the exhale of the plant. And then when I exhale CO2, carbon dioxide, the plant is taking it in. The trees are. So I'm in a interdependent relationship, in an exchange of energy with the plant that's here on my desk that looks completely separate. So when you feel into our interconnectedness, then you don't need to feel lonely so much. And that gives us deeper satisfaction, deeper meaning, deeper connectedness. So I'm just gonna give.
Even the plants. No, sorry. Even
Yeah.
the plant actually, it's ultimately a mental construct. So it's inside of you in a sense. I mean,
Yeah.
beyond the exchange of air and oxygen.
Yeah, well, I don't know that exactly. I would say the plant is a mental construct. The word is a mental construct, but I can touch it. I can touch the leaves here, and so yeah. I mean, it's the difference between the finger pointing at the moon and the moon. I mean, I say, the moon is a concept, right? And we have all kinds of associations with it.
Yeah.
But, there is a moon out there, and I don't think we want to deny that. I know some philosophies kind of go that way, and that's fine. But I mean, that breeds, at the end of the day, you do have to. It can breed cynicism. It's like, I need to eat. I need to this. I have a body, and not deny it. So I think of it. I speak about the interconnectedness and understanding how we are both an individual and we're part of something. So, right, like they say, I'm a cell. If you have a cell in the human body, it has a cell membrane. It has to take care of its integrity, and it has its immunity and so on within the cell. But the cell is embedded into an organ, which has a function, which is embedded in the organism. So if the cell just takes care of itself, it could be fine for a little while. But if the other organs don't function, and the liver is not working, or the lungs, eventually, or the body has cancer, then eventually that cell is going to wither and die. And so it is with each of us. We have a unique role, a unique function, and a unique ability to contribute to the whole. And so, in physics, there's the particle wave duality. To say just everything is made of waves, well, some experiments say that's incomplete. And if you say everything is a particle, then it doesn't explain it either. So you have to understand that we're both a particle and a wave. We're an individual cell, and we're one with the totality of existence of life. And then that gives our life meaning. And there is meaning. I am a unique expression of this oneness. And that oneness of life has gifted me with certain talents, skills, and superpowers, and I want to use them. That's the most fulfilling thing.
What would you tell to people that have few cases that's always bring to the table? Well, I have no skills. I've just, my whole life is just doing the same thing. I just work in a boring job, and I have no skills, nothing. So how can you convince these people that actually there is a meaning, like for them, obviously, to manufacture, in a sense?
Well, in whatever you're doing, there's always an opportunity to learn and grow and serve. I mean, you could serve just in smiling. You could serve in listening to people. You could serve in being a parent. You could serve in being a friend. You can, there's no such thing as, that's the point of the body, right? In the body, every cell have a function. Some are more vital than others, or whatever. But the hair has its function. The nose hair has a function. The fingernail has a function. The neurons in the brain has a function.
Yeah.
Without the totality, it wouldn't do so well. So
ultimately, it's a bit of a perception, right? I mean, it's not necessarily just. It's not like there's a purpose out there that's defined, that's bigger than anything else, and they need to reach it all the time. It's not always big. It's something that's also maybe you're doing every day, and it's just a perception that you will need to change to be.
Yeah, well, trying to do the big one, and you're comparing yourself. That's comparing mind. That's your ego, as opposed to, what is mine to do in this moment, and how can I express who I am to make a contribution to myself and to my environment.
Okay, Yosi, one last maybe advice to help us become more spiritual, or maybe few advice. I know you can elaborate as much as you want. To help us become more spiritually intelligent as human beings. Okay, I know the whole principles, gratitude, compassion, etc., etc. But give us like some actual activity or tips or routine that we can put in place starting from tomorrow, and we,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
because you can tell people like be grateful, great, but yeah, sure, but how, like, how can I do it? Be
Which one?
compassionate,
Uh-huh. Yeah, well,
grateful,
take
be
let's
compassionate, yeah, sure, but how can I be compassionate to, if I'm, acting all the time without necessarily thinking about it, be conscious about what's myself and my emotions.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So as I said, there's 22 capacities in spiritual intelligence. Like anything, if you want to develop your body muscles, you can't work on all the muscles at once. You
Yeah.
develop a routine. So you pick a quality, let's say gratitude, and you say, okay, for the next month, I'm going to build a habit around gratitude. So every morning when I wake up, I think about, okay, first of all, I got a gift of another day of life. Life is
Mhm.
a gift.
Yeah.
So
Great.
I start with that orientation. I didn't know I was gonna wake up today. Maybe I was gonna pass
You, ne-
last
you never
night.
know. Stay in dream state forever.
Yeah, I was staying in dream state, or some people die in their sleep. So I
Yeah.
just woke up. I got another day. I think about, okay, what am I gonna do today that is gonna give me joy? That's gonna give me meaning. So today I wake up. I look at my schedule. I think I'm okay. I'm gonna have a meeting with Nizar, and he's gonna be talking to me and give me an opportunity to talk to him about spiritual intelligence, which I'm passionate about. So I'm already feeling grateful for the
Yeah.
opportunities to the day. And now in this moment, I'm talking to you and it's become real. So I feel grateful right now. And I'm going to go to sleep tonight. I'm going to practice my gratitude practice. One of the last things is before I fall asleep, as I review my day, what are all the things that I enjoy and I feel grateful for today? So I was, talking to Nizar. It was my
Good
meditation
routine.
practices,
Yeah.
my walk on the beach this morning. It's I'm going to have lunch with my friend today, etc. So all those things, I start to build gratitude practice every
Good.
day. I go through my day with the orientation of gratitude to the moment, which makes me more present. So I work on that for a month, and then I have developed that basic habit around gratitude. Then I pick another quality. You said compassion or purpose or joy, and then you work on that, and you
Interesting.
develop
Yeah. Mm.
your habits around that. It takes a month, to develop a habit, to start laying new neural pathways in your brain. We're all habituated in certain ways, certain thinking, certain patterns. So you have to reprogram yourself. It's a lifelong journey.
But
And
then after that, do you need to, like, keep practicing this 22? It's 22. So you need to keep practicing this 22 every time, or like after a month, let's say, of gratitude, it just becomes subconscious and you don't necessarily need to, it just comes
Well,
by itself.
I practice gratitude, but I have it kind of as a habit. Just do you have a habit of brushing your teeth every day, or you go to you take a shower? You don't think about it anymore. Okay, you
Yeah.
wake up, you go to sleep. Whenever you brush your teeth, whenever you take a shower, whenever you eat your breakfast, you eat your breakfast every day. You have 3 meals a day, 2 meals a day. I don't know whatever diet meal plan you're on, but that's how you run your life, right? And so for me, gratitude is part of life. Now it could be it go deeper. I mean, sometimes I'm mindless. I'm driving, I'm lost in thought, I'm worried
Yeah.
about stuff. But I was like, oh I can actually practice gratitude right now. I can look, the sun is shining, there are these green trees, there's music playing. So
Right.
I can deepen my gratitude practice and bring joy and whatever. So I'm not done with it, but at least I have the basics of waking up in the morning, going through my day, thinking, what can I enjoy? What can I be grateful for now?
Mhm.
Going to sleep, and so on. And then, obviously you can take on a spiritual teacher or spiritual practice like meditation or
Yeah.
prayer or whatever. That all helps, because our minds are, like, let's say, a monkey, and we
Monkey
live
mind.
ADHD kind of culture. We have all these texts and
Fast
notifications. Yeah,
notification thing.
and you can click away to the next thing, and emails are coming, and Slack messages, and all the stuff.
Mm.
So our attention is is very dispersed.
Yeah.
And really what we have, the scarcest resource, is our attention. And
Mhm.
we're not managing it. So,
No.
the biggest thing we have is the moment and where we place our attention. Um, so we want to train ourselves to be intentional in how we place our attention, because the moment is gone, and where I placed my attention is gone, and I'm going to get another moment, but that moment is gone, and I'll never get it back. So this is life. So practicing meditation, prayer, whatever it is, to help build the muscle of paying
Because your
attention
energy. Yeah.
where you want to put your focus, and then you can enjoy the moment, be present. Otherwise life is passing by, and we're not really
Sleeping.
we're not present for our own life. So what's the point?
Experiencing life. Yeah, that's why Wake the F up, by the way, the brand of the center itself.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Yosi, thank you so much for sharing with us. It's been very enlightening for me, at least, and I hope for the viewers. This concept of spiritual intelligence and your path as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Not perhaps some last words, but
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Right now I'm enjoying your smile. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate our connection, your resonance. I'm grateful there are people like you all over the world, and we're all in this together,
yeah,
and
of course.
help elevate consciousness. And I think this is critical. We're living a critical time in life. When you think about it, okay,
Mhm.
with human IQ, we made it to the moon. We split the
Yes.
atom. We decoded the
Gene.
genome. With emotional intelligence, we have more awareness of our emotions. We can manage them better. We have a little more empathy. But you look at the world, you have so many problems of isolation and loneliness and depression,
Lack of purpose.
lack of purpose, and environmental risks, wars. And all of that is coming out of misunderstanding of our interconnectedness. And what we need, I think, to address all these problems is spiritual intelligence. And I think
Yeah.
that we live in a key time to understand this. So IQ is important, EQ is important, but the third missing piece that humanity needs, I believe, to survive and thrive into the
It's a
future.
basic body, mind, soul sort of triangle, right? That's been all over the place in different cultures, different ways.
Sort of. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Body. Which one is body? That's physical. Mind would be IQ. There's body, mind, heart maybe, and soul. I don't know. Spiritual intelligence, emotional intelligence. But yeah, we need all of it.
Yeah.
We're an integrated being, and we are multidimensional. And any one of these organs is sick, it affects the entire system.
Makes sense. Okay. Thank you, Yosi. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Enjoy your day. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.